Good morning, everybody. It's Coffee with Jen and Sharon. And look at this. Look what time it is. We're like right on time.
Yay.
We never do that.
I
How are you today,
feel like
Sharon?
good. And it's feeling like I won't say spring, but it's feeling a little different. I'm seeing the light behind me in my office.
Yeah. It's spring
Um,
adjacent.
it is.
I
It
feel
is.
it sneaking up on us. Well, it's like warm and windy today. So this is funny. Sharon and I chatted for just a minute before we went live. And we were both doing the exact same thing, which was we were out working on our driveways, trying to get those little icebergs to soften up. Because there's a few places, if you live in this climate, you know this, where the sun never comes or the roof drips off and you get those blocks of ice that never go away till like May, unless you go out and physically remove them. And Sharon and I were talking about how satisfying it is when you get that little clump to disappear.
Jen, I just have to say, is this what you envisioned your middle age would be?
Oh my God.
This is
No.
so dorky.
I know.
Homeowner specific. We're excited about melting ice. I mean, come on.
My husband came downstairs and he saw I was outside. He goes, "You're like becoming like a Midwest dad out there." I'm like, I know, I'm obsessed. I have to get the driveway cleared. What's wrong with me? That's not what we came here to talk about today, Sharon.
But what do we come here to talk about?
We came to talk about something that's much more awkward and that we hate to talk about, but sometimes we just have to own up to it. When you screw up as a parent, and I'm not just talking about like maybe just a little thing, although we could talk about those too, but like something that you just inadvertently wounded, possibly scarred your child. They're going to be talking to the therapist about it for decades. And like, how do you come back from that? And how do we make amends? And it's interesting because I'm not sure that our parents really did so much of that. I think it was just sort of like, it was water under the bridge. It was whatever they did, and we didn't dwell on it. But for whatever reason, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a dweller. I know when I've screwed up and I feel so bad about it. That's step one, is just to feel bad about it for a while.
Well, and then to say something. And I mean, I feel like that's something that has really changed since we were kids, that it used to be a lot of people thought you don't apologize to your children because that's going to undermine your authority, even if you've screwed up anything. And that's mostly the way my childhood was.
It's sort of like reportedly, this is how the Queen of England, addresses things: never complain and never explain.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
You just
stiff up your lip.
Never complain, never explain. You just you just keep moving forward. Whatever happened.
Absence of emotions, huh?
A little bit, yeah, that little distance there. And for good or for bad, I think parenting has changed a lot. And now we're much more into our emotions and their emotions. And we're kind of a little bit more in each other's lives, perhaps, too. And some of that might be because of the advent of social media. Now you can follow your kids on Instagram and vice versa. So this is how I think some parents get in a little bit of trouble, is a little oversharing, maybe. Like you might have even had the best intentions, but because something you shared about your child without checking with them first, and boy, they will let you know that you have overstepped. And they're not wrong. They have a right to their privacy. So that's one of those things where you're like, oh, I really did screw up. And how do you make amends for that? Do you have thoughts on this, Sharon?
Well, it starts with the basics of a sincere apology, like we're talking about. And I feel like, it seems like in our house, we practice on every little thing. If I make a little mistake, I apologize, or I apologize for snapping, things like that. And I feel like that lays a good foundation. I see in my kids that they're able to apologize. They'll come back, which took a long time. Some more than others, but they'll come back and say, I'm sorry. I lost my temper. I yelled before. And, it's nice. But then when you feel like, oh, I really shouldn't have said that to, my friend about my kid, or I shouldn't have made reference to that on social media. We had one incident where somehow, I think it came up in my memories, that when my kid was 4 or 5 years old, I shared something that I thought was adorable. And
was there nudity involved? Sometimes it's those.
There was no nudity. I think it was about a crush or something. And then years later, the kids saw this come up in my memories or something, and was just, just so betrayed by this. And, I would never say that at the older age, but somehow I felt like there was this freedom when they were younger. And I'm sure I still make these mistakes now, but I felt like I can't fix this. Nobody has seen this in years, but it betrayed the trust right now. Like, can I tell you anything, Mom? Or are you going to go blabbing to everybody? And, I could explain that it was different when you were little. And I wouldn't say that now. But what if I do say something by mistake? And I just have to start by saying, I make mistakes. I'm trying my best. I want you to be able to trust me. I understand why you're upset.
We have a comment from Jody who she wants to weigh in on this. Oh, that's excellent, Jody. Listening with my teenage son, and he knows I'm posting this. Good topic. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Jody. We appreciate the feedback.
Maybe your son can give us some tips too.
Yeah, give us some pointers. If he feels like it, he can anonymously channel it through you. But I had a similar thing that happened to me, Sharon, which was a memory that came up also on my Facebook account.
Damn Facebook.
Damn Facebook. Damn it.
Where we are right now. We know we're there right now.
There should be a button that says, do your children know you're posting this? Wouldn't that be good? That little extra step would be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. And it was a really cute picture of my girls that I used on a Christmas card. They were dressed up in these really cute little princess costumes. And I think I reshared it, and I thought it was adorable. They were humiliated. They're still mad about it. And they're not wrong. I mean, I get it. I mean, we can have the best of intentions and still screw up. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that I think really the best thing you can do is just sort of throw yourself on the mercy of the court and say, I made a mistake, and I feel terrible, because that's what we would want them to do if the shoe was on the other foot. Because sometimes they hurt us too. Sometimes they do things where you're like, no, that was wrong. You can't do that. So we want them to have that roadmap available to show that it's okay to apologize, show weakness, whatever it is. I think the hardest thing is when you want your kids to apologize to each other, because that is like a way later life stage thing. It's just, you're not going to get satisfaction on that for a long time.
And there's so many opportunities to practice, because there's so many disagreements. I mean, we joke about the bickering, especially between two of my three kids. We're like, oh, they must really enjoy this because they do it all day long. And
I'm still waiting for one of my sisters to apologize to me for cutting the hair on my Barbie doll and then telling my mother that I did it.
Oh,
still mad about it.
I think
still salty.
You need to tag her in the comments here.
I wouldn't dare. Sometimes you just have to forgive and forget. And okay, obviously I didn't forget, but you do have to forgive. And maybe that's the message we need to share a little bit too, is I know that I screwed up and I'm sorry. And maybe there isn't really a way for me to fix this, but I hope that in time you will forgive me for this.
Right. It's easier when I'm learning. There is a way to fix. Like if I ruin my child's sweater because I put it in the dryer and it wasn't supposed to, or whatever it might be, I borrowed something of theirs and then I ruined it. Well, that's easy because I know I need to replace it or fix it, whatever it might be when it's a physical object. And that's, again, modeling what we want our kids to do if they borrow their friend's thing or whatever. But it's the ones you can't fix that are harder.
Yeah, things are easy. Emotions are hard. That's the harder thing to deal with. I do have a funny story about that, which was filed as under best intentions. My husband is still feeling bad about the fact that at the time he tried to iron on a badge for one of my kids' brownie vests, and he was being very careful. And I will say he's actually a much better ironer than I am, but he didn't quite follow the directions. And there's a very specific way you have to put those brownie patches on.
Don't even get me started on that.
And it kind of like smeared all over the vest, like the glue. And he came up and his face was just ashen. He was like, I did something terrible. He showed it. And like the girls still they gave him a total pass on it. They're like, you know what, you were trying. We're gonna give you points for trying. So I think
Oh,
oftentimes the best way is, like I said, just throw yourself on their mercy. Say, I really messed up. I messed up on this. I'm so sorry. And
have
then
you?
of course I
Yeah.
had one more recently where I thought I was doing a good deed and I tried to flatten out my child's diploma and got a big stain on it. And I had to call the registrar's office and get a new one.
You
But
fixed your error. You could fix
I
it.
fixed it. And I didn't
Yeah.
fess up until I fixed it.
Well,
So I
by
could
the
come home once
way-
and say, I did something bad, but I fixed it.
Yeah, you can't get so mad at somebody that way.
Right. And I thought that was, that's a good message too, is like, okay, if you know you screwed up, maybe try not to make it worse. But if you know there's a way you can try to make amends, maybe you come with the confession and the here's how I'd like to make it up to you all wrapped into one bundle, ideally.
Yeah. I have kind of a different spin on this too, Jen. Maybe you have some thoughts on this. Sometimes with some people in particular, they tend to hold a little bit of a grudge. And it can be that the offense wasn't even that bad. I mean, by any, like thinking of the vests, right? That's just as an example, like you were putting on the badges and they said, I want it here. And it was like a 1/4 inch different from where they wanted it. And
right.
So that kind of offense, like the child gets so upset that it wasn't quite right. There's like a perfectionist tendency, and we have
a little out of proportion to the crime.
Yes. So I think part of our job as parents is to try to help them distinguish between it. Like, I'm not going to prostrate myself for a long period of time because it's like when a toddler gets upset because the two foods touched each other. Like, okay, you're upset, but I'm not going to say, oh no, I'm so sorry. I know you don't like them touching, but I need them touch. What can I do to make it up for you? I feel like we have the apology being proportionate. It doesn't make their emotion go away, but I feel like maybe it teaches them, like, okay, not everything is as bad as everything else. Like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't get that thing you asked me for at the grocery store.
Right.
I did forget.
Was this a major crime or a misdemeanor, right? Like we're gonna have to distinguish a little bit between them. And that reminds me of when our kids were small, and they do have those kind of complaints. And it would usually it's about the sibling, and they come in and they want to report to you that so and so did this thing. And our approach to that was just to say, okay, thanks for telling us. So we called it the court of small complaints.
That's very wise.
You don't say, well, that's not a problem. You just say, okay, thanks for letting me know. And that might be the approach that can work with in the case where it's a little out of proportion, that reaction, like, thanks for letting me know you're upset. Duly noted, like, take it in stride. And maybe that's showing them that, okay, well, I'm not saying I'm not trying to dismiss your complaint, but I'm kind of dismissing your complaint.
Noted.
Noted.
Noted that. I hear you and I've noted it.
Yes.
I feel like along the same lines, sometimes, you know how our kids like to vent. They come home from school and you'll hear, a litany of things, 5 things in a row about all the things that went wrong, and maybe they just need to let that out. I feel like that can happen around the house too. And they're not necessarily blaming. They could be like, oh, that I wanted to wear those pants. And, I don't know. Maybe they're not actually complaining about something we did or didn't do.
Maybe it's not blaming. It's just frustration.
But I feel like sometimes I have to remind myself, okay, they're not actually trying to lobby a grievance with me and my behavior. They're just venting, and I don't need to say, you're giving me a hard time or blah, blah, blah. Like, we can overreact too and think that we're...
No, we can't. That never happens. Take that back, Sharon. Yes, I think that's, I'm feeling seen right now. I think that might happen sometimes in my house where I take it personally, not just with my kids, but if any complaint is lodged about whatever it is, I'm like, you take it personally when it wasn't intended to be.
I definitely do that with, and it's a work in progress with making dinner. Like, Yeah, like there's people don't like the dinner, and I just, take it as a rift where there probably doesn't need to be a rift. It's just that they don't like that food, and they're not.
Yeah, people are entitled to not like everything that you make, and it doesn't always have to be, well, what are you going to do about it? Why didn't you make something? It's, again, maybe that's the case where we employ okay, duly noted.
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't
Maybe
like this one. Yeah,
even if they are looking for us to make amends for the terrible dinner we made, we can opt not to.
There's always pizza.
We can say noted. Yes.
Noted.
Noted. That's the theme of the day.
Exactly. I think maybe I'll make a little post-it note with that word on it just to remind me. If you're listening out there and you have particular situation you want to tell us about how you handled, we'd love to hear about it. We were kind of short on solutions today. Maybe we just needed to vent. Maybe that's what it was all about. But
yes,
we hope that we are not scarring our children. No parent sets out to do that, and that's the part that we feel bad about when we do screw up. Is we're like, especially if you did have good intentions. At the very least, you didn't. It was the absence of bad intention, but it still makes you feel like a schmo when you hurt your kids' feelings. It's kind of the worst.
True.
So
it really is. Sorry.
We feel you. If you're feeling that, we feel you. And if you have thoughts on how to help make it better, please share them in the comments. We'll be happy to share them with others. I'm going to go out and work on my driveway because the sun's out. I can see. I'm getting my driveway clear today, Sharon. That is tops on my list.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week, and thanks for joining us.
Have a great week.